Good morning, my beautiful friends. This is your wake up call with Maui Paul. I am Maui Paul, and we are here today to say some nice things about ourselves. We are coming here in the morning because, quite honestly, the world doesn't have very nice messages for us. Typically, the world has some pretty awful things to say about us in the service of getting us to think a certain way, getting us to buy a certain thing, etc. And so we are here to just really accept and love ourselves for who we are. And we're going to do that with my I Am deck today. Now, this deck is full of positive affirmations, and I'm going to pull one off the top. We are going to affirm that about ourselves today. So thank you so much to those of you guys who share this. Because of you, we reach about 1,000 people a week. How cool that is! It makes me really happy, especially in this this holiday time that I'm currently broadcasting this. Sometimes people really need to have a uh, a positive message, a positive affirmation. So we're going to do that for ourselves today by pulling one off the top and saying that I am resilient. I am resilient. I have the power to bounce back from any situation. So I am resilient. I have the power to bounce back from any situation. So are you resilient? You are resilient. You have the power to bounce back from any situation. I'm going to write that down in the comments. I'm going to write down that I am resilient and that I have the power to bounce back from any situation. And I encourage you to write that down as well. It is one thing to hear me say it. It is another thing entirely to say it yourself. And in order to write it down, that thought has to go from my brain into yours. And really, that's where it needs to live. When the thought that we are resilient lives inside of ourselves, it stops negative self-talk from existing. It stops negative self-talk from propping up in that moment. So many times we are slaves to the negative self-talk that lives inside of us, that consistent internal monologue telling us that we can't or that we're not good enough. And that internal monologue was placed there intentionally by people who would like to control us. And so let's be adults about this and let's control ourselves by saying that we are resilient. So I've written that down in the comments, and I see that you guys are writing that down in the comments too. That's wonderful. It doesn't take much effort at all, and the results are profound. So I am resilient, and I think about resilience, and I think about all the things that I've bounced back from. I've bounced back from stuff where I had literally no idea how life could ever possibly change. I have been flat broke before. I've been in a place financially where I didn't have 25 cents to go print off a resume, and I thought to myself, how on earth am I going to get a job and continue to make money if I can't even afford to print off a resume? And yet, events conspired such that within 6 months of that situation, I was earning six figures. How does this happen? It's a mysterious thing. Life happens mysteriously like that. And so I'm very resilient. I've been in a situation where I felt like completely, entirely bereft of love. And I was wondering how on earth I could ever even get to a place where anybody would love me or honor me or accept me for who I am. And in that place of being completely bereft of it, I had no idea how I would possibly proceed. And within a year of feeling that feeling, I also felt the love and admiration and respect of a partner. So the fact is that life changes, situations change, and they change slowly enough that we don't even notice them, and yet profoundly enough that when we look back a year, 2 years, 5 years at our lives, we are consistently astounded with the progress that we have made. And that's resilience. Resilience is continuing to get up and go on and on and on, just to keep on keeping on. We are not defeated until we say that we are, until we admit it. We must admit that we are defeated before we can be. I was having dinner with a friend last night, and he used a turn of phrase which I had never heard before, but it made sense to me. He says, "I have reached my appomattox." If you're familiar with Civil War history, you know that Appomattox is the place where General Robert E. Lee surrendered and essentially officially ended the Civil War in the United States of America. He's like, I have reached my Appomattox. And I think to myself, you know, what he basically was saying was, I have given up on this particular situation. The situation isn't something that I am going to continue to control. And he was saying it in kind of an empowered way. He wasn't saying I give up because I'm angry about it, or I give up because I'm defeated. He says I'm just no longer going to put effort into this thing that isn't serving me at all. And I thought about it. I was like, you know, we have to admit that we aren't defeated until we say that we are. We have to admit that we are defeated. And in the way that he said it, it was just so very empowering because he didn't describe himself as being defeated. He described himself as putting his energy elsewhere. And ultimately, when we do choose to put our energy elsewhere, it can be an empowered choice. And that's a part of being resilient. We have to do something different. If we're doing something and nothing is happening, then we must do something differently in order to get a different result. We have to do a different thing to get a different result. If we continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, well, that's the definition of insanity. So I am resilient today. You are resilient. Remember that you and I both have overcome literally every single event in our lives, every single situation in our lives that we thought was not able to be overcome while we were in it. We've overcome every single one of them. Our lives are characterized by our resiliency. So let's be resilient today. Let's be resilient by continuing to keep on keeping on at the things that are important to us. And let's be resilient by saying, okay, I've given enough energy to this thing. I am all done with behaving in this way. I'm all done with presenting myself to the world in a way that is not serving me or the world around me. And in doing so, we will show the strength and the conviction that we have and really help the people around us also to be raised up and to recognize their own resilience, their own power that we all have in this now moment. So I'm going to conclude in this now moment and say thank you so very much for showing up. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you for engaging. Thank you so much for the making these comments and taking these words from my consciousness and storing them inside of yours. The more that we believe this collectively, the better off humanity is as a whole in ways that are both impossible to recognize and also profound. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you would like to get a particular affirmation, if you need a specific affirmation that will help you be resilient today, I have all of these archived on my YouTube channel. And until then, I will talk to you guys later. Aloha from paradise.